There's not a specific beginning for different pieces. Sometimes they begin, I do this and I do that, and then I put them together. And I was working on a piece that I then called May Windows. I was working with the qualities peculiar to video, so I was using my camera in a different way. I could turn the knob to let in more light, and May Windows is about that, is using the light meter of the camera to make it very, very kind of flooded with light. I also had the cones. I always start with one idea. So in this case, I started with the idea of a cone, and what is the shape of a cone, and what can you do with it, and what does it represent, and so on. So these cones come out of that first attention to the form. From the very beginning, I thought of my work as a kind of continuation of my sculpture, because I was making sculpture before I was doing performance. Whenever I made a performance, I had to make a situation for me to step into. In other words, I don't just get up and do something against a wall. I have to have a situation so that I become, removed from my everyday reality. I thought of the spaces that I made for my performances were like stage sets. Well, stage sets was a kind of combination of works that I'd done before that. For instance, the idea of building a kind of receding stage set with paper hanging from poles and the hoop at the end. I'd already done that in an installation called Funnel. So that part of stage sets came from that piece. I added the roof made out of paper, and then I also added a kind of pagoda, which is to me is sort of like a magic space. And then the table I used to perform on in a piece I did at the kitchen and maybe a couple of other places. And that was like a little stage to perform on. So the piece Stage Sets is a coming together of different elements of my work. Dia invited me to do a performance at Dia Beacon, maybe 2 years before it actually opened. I knew I was going to do a piece about the Abby Warburg text.
I have the sensation of being a seismograph assembled from the wooden pieces of a plant that has been transplanted from the east into the fertile northern German plains.
Abby Warburg, his whole philosophy of art history was to relate different periods and times and high and low art, not to have a linear progression. And it very much coincided the way I look at art history and the way I look at work is to not dwell in a linear progression, but to go across boundaries and to put things together, juxtapose elements from different times and places. In the 60s, I went to New Mexico because I heard about the Hopi snake dance, and I was very lucky to see it. But of course, I wouldn't include anything about it in my work out of respect to the indigenous people. So when I found Warburg's book, he wrote a book, he visited that same reservation, and he wrote about his visit to the Southwest, which had deeply moved him and affected him, and I think, in a way, probably changed his life. So that's why I became interested in him. When I visited Dia Beacon the first few times, I didn't know who was going to be in it, and I met Jose Blondet, and he was running the education department. I didn't know anything about him, but I said, would you like to be in my performance? Then I heard about Jason from Adam Pendleton. We went through it scene by scene, and I would set it up with the background and the text and the performers, and then Jason would try different motifs, and then I would improvise to that. So that part was really a collaboration of me responding to his music and he responding to my movements and also to the content and the video projections. After the performance, I made an installation at Yvon Lambert in New York. They had a very big gallery, very nice, beautiful space. And I did what I always do. I deconstructed the piece and separated out the video backdrops. So when I came to Dia Beacon, I had a lot of room. And I wanted to use the entire space of D8 Beacon so that you came in and you saw a long corridor with a video projection at the end, which is one of the main video projections with the snake in front of it. It's called Electric Wires. Again, that's America, electricity and wires and, expansion. There's 3 smaller projections. There's one called Wolf Lights, one with Ragini and I improvising, and Melancholia is the 3rd one. For me, Melancholia represented my feeling about the American West and how it's been plundered by settlers and so on, just taking over. So I thought of it as being a melancholic situation. I can't tell you how great it is for me to have the Shape Descent installed in the same place where it was first made. That's amazing. I don't think that happens very often, that a piece like that gets put back in a different form. And the space is so beautiful. I love that basement space with the columns. So it was really interesting for me to do this installation and to figure it out. It was just pure pleasure, I have to say.